Ladies and gentlemen, in the vast and untamed wilderness of the American frontier, silence was not just a preference, it was survival. A single gunshot could echo for miles through the dense forests and open plains, announcing the hunter's location to every creature nearby, prey and predator alike. That thunderous crack would scatter game, alert rival hunters, and potentially draw the attention of enemies, whether human or beast. It was a loud declaration in a land where discretion often meant the difference between life and death. The bowhunter, by contrast, was a ghost in the trees. His weapon spoke in whispers. The draw of the string was a breath held tight, the release a gentle sigh. The arrow's flight, a blur, a hiss, a final moment of silence, delivered death with terrifying subtlety. No warning, no echo, just the sudden collapse of a deer or the stillness that follows a perfect shot. This silence was more than a tactical advantage. It was a philosophy. The bowhunter moved through the world without disturbing it. His kills were clean and quiet, his presence barely registered by the creatures of the forest. In an era where every shot fired cost precious resources and risked unwanted attention, the ability to kill without a sound was invaluable. Noise was a luxury. The bowhunter had no use for luxury. He needed results, efficient, quiet, and lethal. On the frontier, where every mile brought new challenges and supply lines were a distant dream, the true hunter thrived not through what he owned, but through what he could make. Firearms, though powerful, came with a steep cost. Ammunition was limited, powder could get wet, metal parts could rust or misfire, and replacement components were nearly impossible to come by in the wilderness. A man armed with a rifle might be deadly, until his last bullet was spent. Then, he was just another vulnerable soul in a ruthless land. The bowhunter, however, relied on a different kind of strength, self-sufficiency. His weapon was born from the land around him. A bow could be carved from hickory, ash, or yew, trees found in the very forests he hunted. Strings were made from animal sinew or tough plant fibers. Arrows were carefully whittled from straight branches, with tips carved from bone, stone, or forged metal when available. Feathers for fletching came from birds he had already brought down. Nothing went to waste. This ability to create, repair, and replace his tools gave the bowhunter a near-limitless advantage in a world where stores were hundreds of miles away, if they existed at all. His survival didn't depend on shipments or trade caravans. It depended on his hands, his knowledge, and his connection to the land. When others ran out of bullets, he sharpened more arrows. When a bowstring wore thin, he twisted a new one before dusk. He didn't just live off the land. He shaped it, bending nature to his will with skill and patience. This ingenuity was the backbone of his survival, and a testament to the mindset required to endure the unforgiving edge of civilization. In the wild frontier, survival depended not only on what you carried, but how invisible you could become. For the bowhunter, vanishing into the natural world wasn't a trick, it was a way of life. Unlike soldiers or settlers who moved in groups or left visible trails, the bowhunter needed to dissolve into the very fabric of the forest. Every rustling leaf, every snapping twig, every shifting shadow had to be considered. The slightest mistake in movement or visibility could send prey fleeing or alert enemies to his presence. He didn't wear bright colors or polished buttons. His clothing was often earth-toned, leather, fur, or homespun fabric stained by soil, smoke, and time. Mud was sometimes smeared on the face, leaves tucked into belts or hats, and even scent masked with natural oils or the smoke of a fire to avoid detection by the sharp noses of animals. His body moved low and slow, mimicking the rhythm of nature. He walked with the wind in his favor, paused when birds sang louder, and crouched motionless when the forest fell silent. The bowhunter's eyes were always scanning, not just ahead, but above, below, behind. He read the world around him like a living map. A broken branch might mean a deer passed recently. A sudden silence in the trees might hint at a nearby predator or a human threat. He used the terrain to his advantage, moving along animal paths, ducking beneath undergrowth, or using rock formations and tree trunks as cover. Becoming invisible wasn't just about hiding, it was about blending. He wasn't an intruder in the wilderness, he was a part of it. Trees didn't notice him, birds didn't flee, animals didn't suspect. And when he raised his bow, It wasn't the act of a man disturbing nature. It was nature acting through him. Among all the virtues a frontier bowhunter possessed, none were more essential than patience and precision. In a world where rushing meant ruin and hesitation could cost a meal or a life, the bowhunter operated on a different clock. Time was not his enemy, but his companion. While others might stalk loudly through the woods or fire recklessly at distant shapes, the bowhunter knew that success came not from haste, but from stillness and control. He could wait for hours beneath the shadow of a tree, unmoving, barely breathing, his senses stretched to the edge of awareness. Muscles tensed, eyes narrowed, breath shallow. He became a statue of intent. A distant snap of twigs or the faintest rustle of leaves might signal an approaching deer, elk, or even a rival hunter. But he would not act immediately. He would observe, measure the distance, read the wind, watch the angle of the sun and the way it played off the terrain. Every detail mattered. When the moment came to draw the bow, it had to be flawless. The pull of the string had to be smooth and silent, the anchor point consistent, the aim instinctual. There was no time for adjustment once the arrow was loosed. The shot had to be clean, a single, precise strike to ensure a quick and ethical kill. A miss could mean not only a lost opportunity, but spooked prey that might not return for days. Precision was more than physical accuracy, it was mental clarity. The bowhunter trained his instincts through countless repetitions, through failures and lessons learned under harsh conditions. His body became an instrument finely tuned to the demands of the hunt, and his mind a steady compass of judgment and timing. Every shot was a culmination of countless silent calculations: distance, tension, angle, motion. In the wilderness, where one poorly placed arrow could mean an empty belly or a wounded, suffering animal escaping into the underbrush, there was no room for error. The bowhunter knew this deeply, and so he waited, and he aimed, not when it was convenient, but only when it was perfect. To the frontier bowhunter, the act of hunting was never a game. It wasn't measured in trophies or tales told around a fire. It was measured in calories, warmth, and the will to endure another day. In the unforgiving wilderness of early America, every arrow loosed was a calculated investment, a vital decision that carried the weight of hunger, health, and survival. There was no luxury of failure. The stakes were raw and real. A missed shot didn't just mean disappointment. It meant an empty belly, a cold night, or a family left waiting for meat that wouldn't come. Winter could arrive without warning, rivers could flood, and storms could strip away shelter. In such a brutal environment, the bowhunter wasn't chasing sport. He was chasing sustenance. Every animal he tracked, be it deer, rabbit, or bird, represented more than food. It was hide for clothing, sinew for string, bones for tools, and fat for firelight. Nothing was wasted. Everything mattered. This kind of necessity shaped the bowhunter into more than a skilled archer. It turned him into a survivalist, a naturalist, a man who understood the land not as scenery, but as a living, breathing test. He learned the migration patterns of game, the behaviors of prey, the meaning of tracks in the mud or the sudden hush of birdsong. He knew when to strike and when to wait, when to conserve energy and when to take a risk. The bowhunter's decisions weren't guided by thrill or adrenaline, but by instinct honed through hardship. He couldn't afford reckless shots or careless movements. He had to know his limits, trust his tools, and respect the balance of the ecosystem around him. Overhunting a valley could mean starvation next season. Wounding an animal instead of killing it meant wasted effort and unnecessary suffering. The bowhunter lived by a code, one shaped by necessity, ethics, and the harsh truth that nature gave nothing for free. In an age when many looked to tools for an edge in the battle for survival, the frontier bowhunter stood apart as a symbol of pure skill. While the rifle was a marvel of engineering, loud, powerful, and deadly, it also relied on the conveniences of civilization, manufactured powder, forged bullets, and complex mechanisms that could fail in rain, snow, or rust. The bow, by contrast, was a humble instrument. It had no moving parts, no gunpowder, no roar of thunder. But in the hands of a skilled bowhunter, it became a weapon of astonishing efficiency and elegance, powered entirely by human mastery. Using a bow was not just about pointing and shooting. It demanded years of discipline, practice, and understanding. The archer had to learn the feel of the draw, the flex of the wood, the angle of release. There were no shortcuts, no room for guesswork. Each shot was the result of deeply ingrained muscle memory and a mind trained to read distance, wind, and motion like second nature. In this way, the bow did not make the man effective, the man made the bow effective. Every part of the bowhunter's craft reflected this reality. From crafting his own arrows, balanced perfectly and tipped with bone or flint, to making adjustments to his bowstring in the field, his success relied not on tools, but on talent. He was intimately connected to his weapon, not as a consumer of manufactured power, but as a creator and master of his own technique. This focus on skill over technology also granted the bowhunter a unique freedom. He was not dependent on supply wagons or trading posts. He didn't need to barter for bullets or hope for a shipment of powder. Everything he needed, he could create, maintain, or adapt using his knowledge of the land and his own ingenuity. His weapon was not an external machine. It was an extension of his body, guided by patience, control, and a sharp eye. On the frontier, where tools could fail and resources could vanish, skill endured. It was the one thing that could not be taken, broken, or lost. And for the bowhunter, it was the ultimate weapon. For the frontier bowhunter, the wilderness was not a hostile place to conquer. It was a living system to understand, respect, and move within. Every tree, every stream, every bird call held meaning. He didn't force his will upon the land. He adapted to its rhythms, learned its patterns, and found his place within its vast, intricate web. Unlike others who saw the forest as a barrier to be pushed through or tamed, the bowhunter viewed it as a partner, demanding, yes, but also generous to those who listened. He learned the seasons not from calendars, but from the changing smells in the air, the behavior of animals, and the subtle cues in the canopy overhead. He knew which berries could be eaten and which plants would poison, which tracks were fresh and which were weeks old. Rainfall patterns, bird migrations, and the rustle of leaves in the wind spoke to him as clearly as written words. This wasn't instinct. It was knowledge gained through years of immersion, experience, and humility. His footsteps were soft not just to avoid alerting prey, but because he understood his presence left a mark. He didn't destroy needlessly or kill more than necessary. When he took from nature, it was with reverence. The life of an animal was never just meat. It was a spirit, part of a cycle he honored with quiet gratitude. The bones, sinew, hide, and even the blood were used, ensuring nothing was wasted. The forest provided, but only to those who approached with respect and care. His harmony with nature also made him a protector of it in ways that others couldn't understand. He noticed when streams ran dry earlier than usual or when game populations declined. He recognized when the balance was off, when something unnatural stirred in the woods. And while he was a predator, he was never careless or cruel. His presence didn't upset the natural order, it was part of it. Like the wolf or the eagle, he was a participant in the eternal rhythm of survival. This deep connection to the land gave him an edge no technology could replicate. He didn't just survive in the wilderness, he belonged to it. The frontier bowhunter, though rarely seen, played a silent but vital role in the vast, untamed world of early America. He was not the loud figure rallying settlers, nor the uniformed soldier marching in lines. He was the lone watcher, the quiet sentinel whose presence was often felt more than observed. Moving through the deep woods and across the fog-draped valleys, he left no trail behind, no echo of gunfire to betray his path. Yet in his silence, he offered protection, sustenance, and knowledge, qualities far more valuable than noise or bravado. Villages, camps, and traveling parties often benefited from his unseen labor. He scouted ahead for danger, marked animal trails, and cleared paths that others would unknowingly follow. Without ever being formally asked, the bowhunter served as the eyes and ears in the wilderness. His awareness of enemy movements, the shifting behavior of predators, or signs of distant storms often saved lives, though few ever knew to credit him. He didn't seek recognition, he sought readiness. His work wasn't performed for applause, but out of a deep sense of duty to survival, his own and often that of others. When a settler found meat hanging near his cabin or a snare reset along a game trail, he might not know who had left it, but the bowhunter did. When a dangerous path was mysteriously marked with signs carved into bark, or a child went missing and was quietly found hours later in the woods, the explanation often came in the form of a faint trail in the mud, barely visible, save to someone trained to see it. The bowhunter, from the shadows, acted with a quiet morality shaped by necessity and a bond to those who also lived on the edge of the wilderness. This role required more than survival skills. It demanded restraint, judgment, and a profound understanding of when to act and when to disappear. He knew how to be present without being seen, how to observe without interfering, and how to influence the course of events without leaving a trace. Where others left footprints and noise, he left only a memory of safety, a presence just out of sight, like the wind in the trees. In a world where noise often defined power, the frontier bowhunter thrived in silence. His strength wasn't in what he could conquer, but in what he could endure, what he could understand, and how completely he could disappear into the world around him. He walked a path few could follow, guided not by maps or compasses, but by instinct, respect, and unshakable discipline. He was more than a hunter. He was a student of the land, a guardian of balance, and a reminder that true mastery lies not in domination, but in harmony. And though his name may be lost to time, the forest remembers his footsteps, the quiet legend of the silent warrior who became one with the wild.